Hello everyone and welcome to Luminar Coffee Break. I'm Angela Andrieux and today I'm going to show you how to make your images appear sharper. So for most of us who are into photo editing, we're probably shooting RAW, and especially if you're just getting started with shooting RAW, you probably have noticed straight out of the camera your images appear a little bit soft. And that can be caused by a number of things. The most important one being is your camera is not doing any processing to sharpen that image. It's giving you all of the raw data. So when you get a JPEG out of the camera already sharpens it. So that's why those images appear sharper. Your raw images need to be sharpened separately, and I'm going to show you a few tools today in Luminar AI that can help you bring out all of the details in your images and make them look spectacular. So let me go ahead and switch my screen over here. You ought to be seeing Luminar AI. I want to say hello to Pat from Alabama. Thanks so much for joining us today, Pat. All right, so I have a beautiful image here that was taken by one of our ambassadors, Kuma Sevic, and let me show you what I started with here. So here's the before image. You can see it's a little bit flat. There's definitely a significant amount of haze, and while there is a good deal of detail there, it really lacks punch. So what I did was I started with a really cool template that added a lot of that detail for me, and then I went into the edit tab and refined it and came up with this. And it's just such a spectacular sight. I don't know if you can see down here in the foreground for a little bit of scale, there's a pickup truck and a person standing right there. Give it a second for it to render and get sharp. It's taken its sweet time. You can see up here in the upper left corner how the Luminar AI menu is changing color. That means it's thinking. There we go. Now the image is sharp. You can see for scale how grand that landscape is, and it's just pretty amazing. So to start, what I'm going to do is go to my edit tab and down to my history and go back to the original and show you exactly what I did. So let's go ahead and jump into our templates, and I'm going to begin with the for this photo section. And up here at the top, it gives me a few collections that I might want to look at. And one of the ones that pops up here is scenery, and the description here, fast scenery fixes. These have provided me such great jumping off points for other edits that I'm going to go ahead and jump in there today. And since we're wanting to talk about sharpening, let's go ahead and use clear and sharp. And with one click, that did an amazing job of bringing out a ton of detail. I mean, you can see all the little nooks and crannies of these rocks over here. It's just pretty spectacular what you can do with a single click. And to me, this doesn't feel over the top. I'm actually going to take it further, bring out a little bit more color, and adjust the way those details are showing and show you some of the tools that I use on a regular basis to make sure I bring out details where I want them. So let's go ahead and click over to our edit tab, and we'll start with our essentials. And I'm first going to start by going down to our Enhance AI, and you can see there's already a fairly significant amount of this applied. I might apply a little bit more. And what Enhance AI does, and specifically the Accent AI slider, is that adjusts your contrast, it brings out some sharpness, it intensifies the color where it needs it, and it does it in a smart way where it analyzes your photo before it applies the changes. Then we can also take a look at structure. So structure is one of the first places I go to when I want to add some detail because it works with that mid-tone contrast and really makes some of those details come alive. We can see that there's already a small amount added. I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more. And let's go ahead and turn that off to see what that does and turn it back on again. You can see it just gives a little bit of definition. The next place I would go is down to our details slider, which makes a lot of sense since we're talking specifically about sharpening and details. So this is where you're going to find the ability to control your small, medium, and large details, as well as your overall sharpening. So this particular template we applied has our small details up a tiny bit, and same for our medium and large. Now, I typically like to back off those small details a little bit because that's where things can start to get crunchy and unnatural. And I'm going to pull up the medium details a tiny bit. And I think that gives us a little bit more balanced look. And sharpening, I think, is pretty good where it's at. What sharpening does is it goes through it, it looks at all your edges. If you push the sharpening up too high, you'll end up with halos around the edges. And a lot of times what you can do, let's go ahead and zoom in and give this a moment here to render. And sometimes my computer's a little slower when I'm live streaming, so I apologize for that. If we pull up this sharpen slider all the way up, you can see how we ended up with a halo and a white line around all of these contrast edges. Essentially, that is what sharpening is doing, is it's causing contrast between the light and dark areas. Let that load again. I moved the mouse and so it shifted the image. So when you're doing sharpening, especially if your image is on the soft side, What you want to do is move that up until you can see that halo and then back it off a little bit. So in this image, right about where that template had it was a really good fit. It brought out some of the definition of those images, but it doesn't leave us with artifacts that are unattractive. So from there, I'm going to zoom back out, and I'm going to do a little bit of creative work here first. Let's start here in our landscape. Now, Dehaze is another great tool for bringing out detail, and that's going to work on a lot of these tones back here that are a little farther away, and where that haze is obstructing some of that detail. So let's go ahead and bring up our Dehaze quite a bit. And I love how this particular tool is bringing out all of that color in the sky. And it just made everything here look so beautiful. Now I'm also going to add a little bit of golden hour just for that late in the day look. Not too much because I don't want to take it overboard. And I think that's looking pretty spectacular. Now the last place I would go to really fine tune my details is over into the Pro Tools and into Super Contrast. And here's where we can really work with our contrast and our highlights, midtones, and shadows separately. Let's go ahead and start with our highlights contrast. I'm going to go ahead and pull that up, and you see what that's doing to the sky. It's really intensifying that color and giving us a lot more contrast in that sky area. So I'm going to go ahead and bring that up, and then we can balance that out if we need to. I think that's really pretty good right in the middle. Our midtones contrast, again, that's going to target a lot of these midtones. I don't know that that needs a whole lot, so I'm going to pull that back, and then we can adjust these sliders to see which way we like it. I think a little bit to the left there looks really good for our midtones. And then our shadows contrast. And you can see this is really brightening up some of those shadows, so I don't want to take it too far. The thing with lights and darks is you want to bring out the detail in your shadow areas, but not too much. If you bring it up too much, you're going to end up with a really flat result. And to keep contrast in there, to keep dimension, to keep it looking real, you need to have the lights and darks. You don't want to lose detail, but you don't want to flatten it out too much either. So let's go ahead and adjust that balance a little bit and see what we like. Actually, I like taking that a little bit to the right. It's darkening up some of those darkest areas and really making the dimension come alive. So that's looking really, really good. Now, to fine tune this, I'm noticing we have a dust spot up here and a dust spot up here. We can easily take care of those back in our essentials using our erase tool. And I'm going to go ahead and just grab that little one right there and grab that little one right there. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Let me go ahead and hit undo. And there we go, that's better. I'll click erase, let that think for a moment. All right, and those are mostly gone. Now I didn't do a great job here and I would go clean that up, but for the sake of time, I'm gonna leave that for now. Now we did push our edits pretty far to bring out a lot of detail and color in the sky. So if you zoom in, you'll notice we have some noise. We can adjust that as well. So when you add noise reduction, you're also going to lose some detail. So in an image like this, I really only want to apply that noise reduction to the sky. I want to keep it out of my foreground because for one thing, it's not distracting. And for the second, I don't want to take away from all of that gorgeous detail we just added. So I'm going to go down to my denoise tool. And when you're applying noise reduction, make sure you're zoomed in to 100% so you can see what exactly is happening. I'm going to pull that up to probably about 50. That's smoothed out a lot of the detail here. Let me go ahead and zoom out. And you'll see that's kind of taken the edge off of our detail in the foreground. So to correct that, I'm going to go ahead and apply a gradient mask to this tool. And I'm going to go ahead and draw that gradient so it's pretty much just kissing the top of those mountains right about there. And I can spread this out a little bit more so that's really not affecting the top of the mountains very much, but it's going to nicely affect the sky. So there we go. I'm going to do that. And now to finish this off, I'm going to add a vignette, and I'll pull my amount slider to -100. I'll bring up that feathering for a nice smooth transition. Maybe even add a little bit of inner light, not too much. Then I go to choose subject, and so right now the center of our vignette is right about here. I want to pull that down so it's affecting, so we're lighting up the foreground and we're darkening up some of this other area out here. So then I'll grab my amount slider and pull that back until I think it looks right. And that looks pretty good to me. Let's go ahead and click off choose subject and take a look at our before and our after. We were able to bring in a tremendous amount of detail through all of these rocks. It makes this little truck down here and the person on the rock stand out, gives us a really great sense of scale. brought out some great colors and details. So I really like this edit. I like where it went. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I would love to answer any questions that you guys have today on Luminar AI. Let me go ahead and take a look here at the chat. Good afternoon, Russ. I'm glad you're able to make it. Excuse me. See here, I got a comment here. Really enjoying AI. One problem though. Can you guys fix the histogram appearing on top of the image? I agree that is a bit distracting. I've also talked to our QA and engineers about that, and hopefully they'll take it into consideration. I would personally like to see it moved up to the top of the tools panel. We'll see if that happens. I'll definitely add your voice to the list because you're not the only one to express that that's a little bit difficult to work with. For those who are wondering where to find the histogram, you go up to the View menu and you go down to Show Histogram. And it's really tiny right up here. You do have the highlight and shadow clipping indicators here in the corner that you can turn on so you can see where you're clipping. You can also use the J key on your keyboard to toggle those on and off. So hopefully that's helpful to you, at least that it's there. But it could be placed better, and I will let our engineers know. One other thing I wanted to point out that was brought up in what the comments from, I think it was yesterday, was that I show you guys often how to go to the web page, the support website, and how to find all the resources there. But there's an even easier way than going straight to your browser. You can go up to the Help menu, and there's access to the user guide right here, and you can go straight to a lot of different resources and find great resources right here in the Help menu. So want to make sure you guys know how to find that. The user guide is incredible. Tons of stuff there, so definitely check it out. All right, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and call it a day. We've got one more session this week, and then we're going to break for Christmas. So I hope you guys are excited for the holidays and are feeling joyous, even though it's been kind of a weird year. I hope you have some good stuff planned, even if it's a small, just your household gathering. There's still a lot of cheer and a lot to be grateful for. So I hope you guys are feeling happy and energized for Christmas and are going to enjoy the long weekend. Like I said, I'll be with you tomorrow, and then we'll be taking off. If you guys are liking these coffee breaks, make sure you click that thumbs up button and let us know. Our bosses like to see that, and that helps a lot. So if you have any questions you'd like to see addressed in a later episode, don't hesitate to put those in the comments. We read all of those. And I'm going to go ahead and sign off for the day. Wish you a great afternoon, evening, morning, wherever you are in the world. Get out there, make some photos, and have fun. Bye, everyone.